Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome. Alhamdulillah, we are very lucky and blessed today to have this training so that we can learn what our rights are and we can help ourselves, help our families, and help other members in the community. So this is Brother Ali Chaudhry. I'm going to give him the mic in a second to introduce himself. This will be a PowerPoint presentation. So I want to make one quick disclaimer, okay? There will be no questions throughout the entire presentation, and at the end there's going to be a Q&A. But we're not going to have people raise their hands and ask any questions. There will be a QR code on the TV. We're going to have you put your phone up, okay? And you can ask your questions through the QR code. It's a Google Forms. It'll only take a second to ask any question that you have, and it'll come immediately to him. Behind me are two officers from this is Officer Casey, and this is Detective Solomon from the Worcester Police Department. They are not here to take us away, okay? But if the kids keep playing around, then we'll see what happens. Okay. They're here. They wanted to take part in the training also to learn about this, and they'll give a small talk at the end of the presentation to teach us about how the Worcester Police Department is handling the immigration and what their relationship is with ICE and so on and so forth. Okay, so don't be scared, unless your kids are running around. Then, just kidding. Go ahead, please take a seat. So we're gonna go ahead and start the presentation now, inshallah, and we'll go on for exactly 1 hour, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Ali Chaudhry. I am an attorney. I am currently practicing immigration law, and from a background perspective, I started off my career working in healthcare and data privacy, and over the last couple of years I transitioned and started my own firm where I've been doing immigration law for a couple of years now. Alhamdulillah, at the same time I'm also the president of the IC&E Masjids in Quincy and Sharon, so that duty itself keeps me busy, but I'm going around a couple different masjids to give this presentation because it's a very important topic that I think needs some awareness around, and just to make sure that our Muslim brothers and sisters know about the rights that they have. So inshallah, we're going to start. As the brother mentioned, I'll go over some disclaimers in a few seconds. So the presentation is about immigration under Donald Trump. My contact information is right here, and it'll be displayed at the last screen as well. I think I have about an hour. I may need about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and then inshallah we could do Q&A. Is there a way to turn that light off? I don't think it's shining in the middle. Or can everybody read this? Can everybody read what's on the screen? Good? Okay. All right, so a couple disclaimers here. This presentation is for informational purposes only. It does not constitute formal legal advice. If you're looking for formal legal advice, the recommendation is to go ahead and hire an attorney that can address your specific needs. Additionally, one of the reasons, actually the main reason that I didn't want to do a live Q&A is because based on the current climate and the situation going across the nation, there have been incidents where we have a crowd like this, whether it's a masjid or another cultural facility, and somebody will raise their hand and ask a question that could potentially incriminate them under the current administration. And before they get to their car, they find out that somebody in the crowd is actually an ICE agent, and they don't go to their car, they actually end up getting detained. That's why I don't want to do a live Q&A. It's for your safety and your protection. The purpose of this presentation is general information. I'll give you some of the objectives, some of the topics that we're going to talk about. Again, for a formal consultation or to discuss your specific needs, I recommend finding an immigration attorney, whether it's myself or somebody else, and addressing your specific questions with them. And then last disclaimer, this presentation itself does not constitute any attorney-client relationship. Again, it's informational. This is a set of information that I put together for your knowledge purposes only. So the objectives of today, so part of understanding what is going on in the current political climate is to also understand what is the overview of the government structure and how that plays into what's happening day to day. So we're going to cover the current government structure, an overview of immigration enforcement. We're going to take a deep dive into know your rights. One of the main topics we'll talk about is it safe to travel? And then social media, can it hurt your case? And then inshallah at the end, we're going to do a Q&A. There's going to be a QR code displayed, as the Sheikh said, and you can address your questions in that format. So the overview of the government structure and the powers of the president. The reason that this is important is because we know that the changes that are taking place nowadays in immigration are directly due to the powers of President Trump. And immigration in general, a lot of these day-to-day enforcements that we see are due to the president because it's a direct power that he has. So in government, we have three administrative branches. We have the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. All of these branches play on how immigration laws are formed, but the executive branch is what dictates the day-to-day situation that's going on. So under the legislative branch, they are responsible for making immigration laws, such as who can enter, how the visas work, and what path do we have for citizenship. They also have the constitutional power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. Naturalization process is the process of becoming a citizen. That process is determined by the legislative branch of the government. The judicial branch is what interprets immigration laws. They review cases involving deportation and asylum, constitutional rights of non-citizens, challenges to immigration policies. I see some of you taking pictures of the slideshow. That's totally fine, but I'm going to give this slideshow to your board, inshallah, afterwards, and they can spread it to your, if you guys have any WhatsApp groups. So no need to take pictures. You can if you want, but it'll be shared, inshallah, afterwards. And then the executive branch. So this is the branch that is directly governed by the president, and this is why they say, the powers that the president has a direct effect on your day-to-day encounters with law enforcement. So this branch enforces and administers immigration laws through agencies such as the Department of Homeland Security. And the Department of Homeland Security is a pretty broad agency, okay? That's the agency that we have the day-to-day encounter with. Under that comes USCIS, ICE, and Border Patrol. So the president can also influence immigration through executive orders and directing agency priorities. What that means is when you're traveling through the airport, the reason a Border Patrol agent may be extremely aggressive with you or may interrogate you or may detain you for a long period of time is because they're given a broad authority from the president to do so. And the reason for the broad authority, and we can get to that later, is within a 100-mile radius of the border, and the airport counts as a border. Within 100 miles of the border of the United States, these agencies have a very broad authority to do what they need to protect the United States. And if that means detain you for 5 or 6 hours because you're not handing over their phone, that is allowed. It doesn't mean it's legal or it doesn't mean they're not abusing their power, but they have this broad authority that's given directly from the president. Overview of the immigration enforcement. So the departments that are under the executive branch. Department of Homeland Security, again, is the overarching department that governs these three individual agencies. So number one, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is known as ICE. These are the immigration police enforcement and immigration police force. They're in charge with enforcing immigration laws. They're in charge with detaining. They're in charge with allowing for deportation. And they represent the DHS in immigration proceedings. So when somebody's detained, and now it's time for them to go to court and answer before a judge on why they should be getting deported, on the other side of the bench is the ICE officers and their representatives who will make the argument against the immigration attorney on why this specific individual needs to be deported. And then there's the Custom and Border Protection, also known as CBP, enforcement at the border and within a 100-mile border, checkpoints and ports of entry. If you've driven to Canada or back, you've encountered these folks. If you've come into the country via Logan Airport or any other airport, again, these are the people that you see day to day that dictate the entry into the United States. And then there's U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, known as USCIS. They adjudicate the petitions for immigration benefits such as asylum, green card, citizenship, and special visas, or rather any immigration application. So how many of you have actually applied? This is not an incriminating question. How many have applied for any sort of immigration benefit? Any green cards, any? Okay, so a couple hands. So that's the agency that evaluates your case. And that's why it says USCIS on top of those applications. They're in charge with receiving these applications and determining whether you get these sorts of rights. All right, so how can you encounter immigration enforcement? So one example is any contact with the criminal justice system. Example, you're an undocumented and you got arrested for a petty offense. I think the police officers will address this at the end, but it used to be the case that if you encountered local police, usually they wouldn't work with these agencies. It was two separate issues, especially in areas such as Boston, which is a sanctuary city. If you get arrested for a crime, Boston police arrest you. They do whatever they have to do, but they won't call ICE. Nowadays, the climate changed a little bit, and we've had situations where somebody has been arrested by a local police officer, and whether they come out of jail or whether they go to court for their arraignment and leave, the police has already made contact with ICE because of this person's status, and they've been arrested. So it used to be the case, again, that these agencies don't work hand in hand, but now it seems like there's been communication between some local police departments and ICE when it comes to undocumented individuals. So, one of the reasons when I'm applying for a green card for somebody, when they have a pending application, one easy way to get in trouble is, I'll tell them, have you ever committed a crime? No, I haven't. Okay, the application's pending, stay away from crime. But what people don't pay attention to is just typical speeding when you're driving, right? Speeding on the highway, speeding on the road is a very easy way to get police attention. Nowadays, even speeding can get you, again, you'll get in trouble with the police, and then if that department is in contact with ICE and you're undocumented, even if you have a pending application, that can get you in trouble. So that's a very easy way to encounter with law enforcement. Applying for a benefit at USCIS while having a removal order or criminal charge. Green card holders returning from travel, which is currently the huge issue, right? And we'll address this later. Is it safe to travel? One issue that we have been seeing nationwide is green card holders that are leaving the US and not being allowed back into the US. Number one reason is their passport is from a country that's on a list of 43 banned countries under Donald Trump's administration, or even if their passport is not from that country, maybe they went and they visited that country. Maybe they took a trip to Syria or Lebanon or Iran or something, just for vacation or whatever. But because that is documented in their travel history, they're coming to the border and not being allowed back in. And then there's raids and targeted enforcement. So ICE becomes aware of groups of immigrants in a workplace. This is a situation I had almost as soon as Trump came into office. There was a restaurant in Boston. It seems like Boston police was working with ICE, and I saw the surveillance footage where the kitchen was raided. The door was opened, an individual let the ICE agents in. Again, this person probably did not do intentionally, but he opened the door for the ICE agents in the back kitchen of the restaurant. All you see is 5 or 6 agents plus FBI agents come in, raid the kitchen, grab anybody who's undocumented, and that's that. And this is why we're having this training, so that you're aware of the rights that you have within your workplace, within your home, within your masjids. But raids and targeted enforcement, there was another issue actually this week in Worcester. I think I shared it with Muhammad. There was a clip on social media where there was ICE raids going on in Worcester. The issue with that is once they come into your area and they get a hold of people, they keep coming back. So it's not a one-stop, we're all set, we're done. If they know, okay, this area has several undocumented individuals that we can target, they're going to keep on coming back to that area. That's part of the reason, and as I mentioned before, I'm a part of the Quincy and Sharon Masjids, and we used to promote Palestinian protests in Quincy and Braintree. But once we realized that ICE has done raids in Braintree, we shut those down. We don't promote those. There are no more protests because we know that once ICE hits a target area, they're going to keep coming back. Reasons for deportation. So even minor non-violent offenses can lead to mandatory deportation, even for green card holders. Examples, lack of lawful status, criminal grounds including nearly all drug conviction, some domestic violence, violation of protective orders, theft, fraud, and more, any immigration violations, fraudulent applications, security-related grounds such as gang involvement, terrorism, and such. Again, something that you think will not lead to deportation can put you at risk if you're not a US citizen, right? So 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got 2 phone calls from Minnesota, 2 students, individuals, they don't know each other, it was just coincident that they were both college students, and both of them, their F1 visas got revoked from their school. Number 1 was a sister who was arrested for a DUI in 2022. So in 3 years ago, she got a DUI in the state of Minnesota, and that DUI she was convicted for, and here it is 3 years later haunting her, taking away her student visa status, and she has to leave the country within 7 days. Number 2, an individual who was involved in petty theft. So she was arrested at a mall, she stole $400 worth of something from a department store. This one was about 2 years ago maybe. She was convicted for that. It's petty theft, it's a very small amount of money, but her F1 visa now in 2025 has been revoked because of it. And that's why when I'm talking to individuals, I'm emphasizing, if you don't have a criminal record, amazing, keep it that way. Don't get involved in any situation you don't need to be involved in. When you're driving, don't speed. You do anything you can to stay under the radar, especially if you have a pending application. So who's at risk of deportation? Anyone who is not a US citizen, and in parentheses I wrote now changing, because it is changing. There was a situation we had a couple weeks ago, it was on the news, folks from El Salvador who were naturalized citizens, right? So they came from El Salvador, they went through the process, they got citizenship through naturalization, they are US citizens, but even they were starting to get deported. So that situation is also changing. So anyone who is not a citizen can be vulnerable if they fall under a ground of deportation, such as criminal charges or prior deportation orders. Unauthorized, undocumented immigrants, people with asylum or refugee status or some other form of protection, lawful permanent residents, which means green card holders, and then non-immigrants, so visas, student visas, work visas, people of that sort. So pretty much anyone that is not a US citizen is always going to be at risk from what we know right now, but that is even changing for people who are naturalized depending on which country and if they were ever convicted of a crime. The expansion of expedited removal. So from the start, the Trump administration announced that it will move quickly to deport individuals who are out of status and have been in the US for less than 2 years without giving them the opportunity to go in front of an immigration judge unless they pass an initial asylum screening, which again has now changed. Asylum applications may be rejected even before getting to a judge. So the normal procedure is you apply for asylum, you end up getting a master hearing, you have to go in front of a judge explaining why you need asylum, your circumstances and whatnot. In some cases now, depending on which country you're from, especially if you're from some of the 43 countries that are on the travel ban list, it's getting rejected right from USCIS, and people are not being able to go in front of a judge to plead their case. So what should you be doing now? If you have been in the US for more than 2 years carry proof of that, such as proof of resident or school, work, or medical records. So if you've been in the U.S., even if you have a pending application, you should have received what's called an I-797, which is a notice that your case has been received by the USCIS. Keep a photocopy on you in your car, just so that if you are pulled over and these questions are asked, which, again, we've had incidents, for example, in Sharon, the Sharon police pulled over one of our members of the masjid, ran a stop sign. He didn't get a ticket, but he was questioned for at least 20 minutes about his status. He was let go eventually. But keeping proof that you applied, or if you have a green card, keeping proof of that, or even if you're a US citizen, keeping your passport or passport card on you can help you stay away from trouble. If you've been in the US for less than 2 years but are already in deportation proceedings, have valid parole status, or have an application pending, carry evidence of that. So again, the rule of thumb is if you have anything pending, keep a photocopy of that with you in your dashboard, or your folded up and put in your wallet. Just have it on you at all times, because right now it's pretty unpredictable. So the registration rule, which is now in effect, I think a lot of you have seen this. I know there was a link that circulated in a lot of the local WhatsApp groups. So there's basically a new rule by USCIS that if you're not a US citizen, you have to register yourself on their website. And there were some people that were spreading false information about it in the WhatsApp group, so I wanted to just clarify this. So many non-citizens are already considered registered, including those who have a green card, those who entered with a visa or on parole, those who have a work permit or are in any immigration proceedings. The issue that I had in our local WhatsApp groups from my community is that there was a brother who spread this information. He sent the article and he sent the USCIS link. He's not a lawyer, he's just a random Muslim brother, and he told everyone, hey, everyone go ahead and register. You have to make sure you're registered. Again, easy way to get in trouble. Consult with an immigration attorney. If you're not registered, schedule an appointment, consult with somebody before you go ahead and register. If you have a pending application, if you've ever applied for any immigration services through USCIS, you are already registered. So the rule requires that individuals who are not considered registered to complete a registration form, which is Form 325R, through their USCIS account, and then attend a fingerprinting appointment. This may include individuals who have not had contact with immigration and those who have applied for status but have not yet been fingerprinted. So some of the need to knows with this is if you register, you may also increase your risk of being identified for deportation and may face criminal charges for entering the US unlawfully. This is the exact reason why when people are spreading this information in WhatsApp groups, it's important to consult with an attorney before you go ahead and do anything. Because again, this brother was telling everyone, hey, go ahead and register, but knowing what we know now, this could be also a way to get you deported, right? You didn't apply for any immigration proceedings, you don't want a green card right now, you decided, let me just stay in this country, let's see how things go. Now that you registered because you listened to somebody's advice that you weren't supposed to, the next day ICE is at your door. If you do not register or carry proof of registration, you may still be at risk of being charged with a crime. So again, double-edged sword, and this is why for your individual case, it is always important to consult with an attorney before doing anything. And then before registering, again, consult with an attorney based on your individual circumstances. All right, know your rights, what to do during interactions with immigration officers. Everything I mentioned before was a little bit preliminary. It was a high-level overview of the current situation, and now we're going to talk about understanding the rights that we have. I want to emphasize something. What I'm going to present here applies to you as individuals in your own home. It applies to you. If any of you are business owners and own, an office and you have employees, this applies to you in terms of protecting those employees. If there are any masjid board members or masjid leaders such as the imam, this applies to you as well in terms of protecting the members of your masjid. All right, so basic rights. Everyone living in the United States has certain basic rights under the US Constitution, regardless of immigration status. It is important to assert these rights to protect your basic human rights. All right, ICE knocks on your door. Do not open the door immediately. Legally, you don't need to open the door unless the officer provides you with a warrant, which is signed by a judge. I'm gonna show you a picture of a warrant after. That's something that I would recommend taking a picture on your phone so you have it with you at all times. When ICE knocks on your door, ask the ICE officers to identify themselves, including their agency, their name, and their ID number. Ask if they have a warrant that is signed by a judge. You have the right to remain silent and a right to an attorney if you choose to invoke that. Tell the officers, I request my right to remain silent and my right to an attorney. And then right away, call your attorney. I want to emphasize something, and this goes to, in respect to ICE officers, any agencies, and local police as well. When the police officer or an ICE agent asks you if you want to call an attorney, or if you want to invoke your right to an attorney, you need to be crystal clear in giving that answer. So you have to say in plain English, I request my right to remain silent and my right to an attorney. If you give an answer like, okay, fine, sure, I'll have an attorney, or something that can be interpreted in both ways, that's not going to help your case. When you're invoking your right to an attorney, whether it's immigration related or any crime, and for any, you get arrested for some random reason, I want to invoke my right to an attorney. You say it very clearly so that they can stop questioning you without the presence of your attorney. All right, this is probably the most important picture that you're gonna see. It's actually the only picture you'll see today. It's the most important picture or the most important slideshow that I have. This is a judicial warrant versus an immigration warrant, okay? The warrant that is on the left side of the screen is a judicial warrant. You can see on the bottom, I don't think my cursor is not showing. So this warrant is signed by a judge, okay? On the bottom right-hand corner, it's gonna say the judge's name. It'll say magistrate judge or something of the like. The warrant is also going to identify the person and the property that is going to be searched, right? So ICE comes to the masjid door and they tell the imam, I have a warrant. I want to search your place for people. Does not apply. Even if he shows him this warrant and it says we're searching for people or we're going to search for the whole property, it doesn't apply. The warrant has to say the name of the individual that they're looking for. It has to identify the property that is being searched, and it has to be, most importantly, signed by a judge. This is called a judicial warrant. If this warrant shows up at your house, at your workplace, at your masjid, at any other building, wherever you are, it's a legitimate warrant and you have to abide by it. In contrast, on the right side of the screen, we have an ICE warrant. And this is what ICE agents have been using to scam people into getting arrested. So they'll show up and they'll try to intimidate you and they'll try to bully you and push you around and say, hey, I have a warrant, I need to search this place, or I need to arrest so-and-so. The warrant is illegitimate. You do not have to answer to that warrant. You have the right to record the transaction, right? You can pull out your phone, you can start making a video of your rights being abused. An ICE warrant is not allowed in terms of getting into your house, your workplace, the masjid. So again, it's the most important slideshow that I have. It's a picture, and inshallah, I'll share the slideshow after, and it'll be easier to see the warrant pictures. Save that picture on your phone so that if you're ever in a situation, you can pull it up and say, hey, the warrant that's being presented to me is not legitimate, I don't have to abide. It doesn't mean you don't have to be respectful, but you don't have to abide. You can ask them to leave your property, they cannot do anything. ICE is not, they're not criminal officers, meaning they don't have arresting power unless you are undocumented. At that point, they can arrest you. But as a US citizen, if you say, hey, I'm the board member of this masjid, you need to leave, they can't arrest you. They don't have that power. So again, most important slide, and one that's being used to scam people into getting in trouble. All right, so if you are stopped while driving, so drive only if you have full driver's license. All right, very important. If you are not documented at all and you don't have any papers, you're still able to get a driver's license and a permit, okay? You don't need to have immigration status to get a driver's license or a driver's permit. However, just like anybody else, if you have only a learner's permit, you cannot drive with that alone, right? The rule in Massachusetts, I believe it's still the case. Yeah, 21 and older, right? You got to be.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, sorry. So for driving in Massachusetts, yes, you do need a license. If you do have a permit, you have to be sitting next to somebody who is at least 21 years of age, who's been driving for at least a year. And if you are somebody who's under the age of 16, you cannot drive with somebody who's young, a juvenile, unless they're a close relative, like a younger brother, younger sister. That's fine. But anything else, yeah, you have to be driving with somebody else sitting in the passenger seat. They can't be behind you, and they have to have a valid license for at least a year.
Thank you. So that's the rule in Massachusetts, okay? Our rule of thumb is if you are not documented and you have a permit, you're not driving, okay? Unless you have somebody 21 or older next to you. What's happening now is ICE agents are hanging around the borders of states. They're right in the border of Maine and Massachusetts, New Hampshire and Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and they're pulling people over left and right, or they're getting called whenever a cop pulls somebody over. Somebody doesn't have a permit, right away they're going away. So again, if you are not documented, only drive by yourself if you have a driver's license. If you don't have a full driver's license, don't drive alone. If you are stopped, stay in the car, place your hands on the steering wheel, just so the officers can see them. As a passenger, you do not need to answer any questions, but the drivers must provide name and address. Go ahead.
I might actually thank you for bringing that up, because that one is also very important. Yes, as a passenger, you do not have to answer any questions, but there are some things that that officers can deviate away from that. So if you are not wearing your seatbelt, that's a reason for us to ask you for an ID, because we can give you a citation for not wearing a seatbelt. If, let's say, a person who's actually driving, we think that they're drunk, driving under the influence of alcohol, or even if it's a drug like opiate or something like that, then we can question the passenger to see, hey, do you have a license? And if so, you can take possession of the car and we can arrest the person who's driving under the influence. If we think that the passenger is involved in a crime, so let's say there was an armed robbery somewhere, like let's say it was here, and they gave a description, hey, it's a white car, four-door sedan, and we see that same car being driven, we have the right to question all the occupants in that car. I just wanted to put
Yep.
that out.
And those are all valid points and accurate. So just to provide additional clarification, what I'm talking about is immigration status. So the officer's correct. Those are questions that are able to be asked by the cop, but a cop can't ask a passenger just because he's in the car, hey, what's your immigration status? Do you have a green card? Are you here undocumented? Those are questions that even if they do ask, you don't have to answer. And then police can search your car if they have probable cause to believe you've been involved in a crime. State clearly that you do not consent to a search. That doesn't mean you won't be searched. If there is probable cause to search your car, you can still be searched. And then don't provide false documents. So again, you're undocumented, you have a driver's permit, which is in record, but you have a fake driver's license. Don't provide any fake documentation. Now, if you're stopped at the border or immigration checkpoints, so agents do not need suspicion to stop and ask brief questions at lawful immigration checkpoints. Again, they have broad authority within a 100-mile radius. At the border, I mean, anytime I drive to Canada, I go to Canada at least once or twice a year. Anytime I drive back, I'm always stopped. I'm pulled into the immigration center for at least 20 minutes, half an hour or so, and it's always the same thing. Oh, we thought you were somebody else, and I can get, let go. Questions should be short and related to verifying immigration status. So again, when they're asking you questions, these are very short questions regarding your immigration status, especially if you don't have any papers with you. Usually you have to carry a passport, but they can still ask certain questions. Agents may visually inspect your vehicle. Some drivers may be sent to a secondary inspection, which again happens to me all the time. For further questioning, it must be limited to routine immigration questions, not asked during the initial stop. And if you are stopped, don't ever flee. What's the time check, Sheikh? Okay. All right, we'll be done. Okay, so your rights at the checkpoint. You may remain silent and decline to answer questions. Just know that if you do decline to answer any questions, it means you will be there for a longer period of time. You can tell the agent, I choose to remain silent, or I will only answer questions with an attorney present. Refusing to answer may result in being further detained or being sent to a secondary inspection. If an agent asks unrelated questions or prolongs a stop, they must have reasonable suspicion of an immigration violation or violation of federal law. If you're being stopped in public, so again, we talked about driving, right? Driving just out on the street or the highway. We talked about crossing immigration checkpoints. Now, just if you're out in public, you're walking somewhere in Boston or somewhere in Worcester. If you're being stopped, stay calm. Do not resist arrest. Do not run. Ask if you are under arrest or free to leave. Remain silent and say that you want to speak to an attorney. Again, very clear language. I would like to speak to an attorney before answering your questions, or I invoke my right to an attorney. You may have the right not to be fingerprinted unless you are under arrest. Police can search you if they have a reasonable suspicion that that you are armed or dangerous, or armed and dangerous. If you have valid immigration documents and are over the age of 18, the law requires that you carry those documents with you. Ask to call your lawyer, and do not provide false documents once again. Now, arrest and detention. So if you are arrested or detained, do not sign anything or take voluntary departure without the guidance of an attorney. Rely on immigration agents to provide you with information about your rights. And to clarify, that means do not rely on immigration agents to provide you with information about your rights. Talk to your attorney. You have the right to remain silent, to call your attorney or family, to be visited in detention by your attorney, and to contact your consulate. Release on bond. So immigration enforcement can choose to place individuals it is trying to deport in immigration detention. If you're detained, many individuals are able to request a release on bond while their cases are pending. Bond is another word for bail, right, but in immigration. Usually the judge sets the bail at a standard amount of $1,500. There are cases in which the judge does not set any bail or sets a bail at a very high amount. So instead of the standard $1,500, maybe they say it's $3,000. At that point, your immigration attorney can go and fight it in court and either request for a bond if one has not been allowed, or request to lower the bond amount. Just know that if you have a criminal background, it was going to be very hard and almost impossible to get out on a bond. The bond money is refundable. So the idea here is that you pay the bond, you get out of detention, you go back home until your hearing, and the idea is that you show up to your hearing. It's a sort of a guarantee. And if you do show up, then you can get that money back. You can request an immigration judge to review the bond decision. It helps to show strong family and community ties. This is very important. So if you're an individual here with no family, no friends, maybe no work history, you're not in school, you're just hanging out in the US, and you have no ties, there's no reason for the immigration judge to actually trust that you'd come back to court. You can get out on a bond and then just run away, right? When we are arguing in court for a bond, part of the argument is we're providing evidence that this individual works at this place, he's been here for 3 years, he has a lot of family, he has a good network of friends, he volunteers at his mosque, he's involved in XYZ. And what that shows is that they're tied to the community so that they don't have a reason to just get out and run away. When you're showing that there's community ties, the judge is more likely to trust that bond decision and release you out on bond versus you being such as, a lone wolf with nobody and nothing. You can get out on a bond and just flee and run away wherever you want. Only someone who's a U.S. citizen or lawful immigration or has lawful immigration status should go to immigration to pay the bond. So again, huge mistake. If you're undocumented and you're detained and your undocumented friend goes to pay bond, they might get arrested too. So we're done with the Know Your Rights portion of the presentation, and now we're going to talk about is it safe to travel and what is happening at the border. All right, so who's being targeted at the border? Undocumented individuals, immigrants with green cards, work visas, or who are on advanced parole. This is currently occurring at airports and country borders for drivers. So again, Canadian border is one example. Immigrants who don't share Trump's values. And I say that because it's, for example, your social media, we'll get into that a little bit. If your social media shows that you don't share Trump's values, you're also a target. Anyone who isn't rich enough, avoiding public assistance and handouts. So what the government doesn't want to do is invite more undocumented immigrants, especially those who are going to feed off the government. Food stamps, Section 8, Mass Health, Medicare, Medicaid, all of these benefits. They don't want these individuals who need those resources, so they're going to do whatever they can as quickly as they can to get you out of the country. People with any kind of criminal records and people from countries that Trump deems unsafe. There's a list of 43 countries that he's added to his ban list. Okay, so is this illegal? Yes, unfortunately, it is illegal. It is legal. Customs and Border Protection does have a broad authority in immigration law, especially as it pertains to border protection. Under Section 235 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, CBP officers can question you under oath, search your personal belongings, including phones, computers, tablets, electronic devices, send you for inspection, decide if you're allowed in. When we're talking about deciding if you're allowed in, right, we're talking about an airport checkpoint or even cross-border between Canada and the US. If you're a US citizen, they cannot refuse you. You are allowed to come back into the country. If you're not a US citizen, they can refuse you at the border. Refer your case to an immigration judge. Arrest you without a warrant under Section 287 of Immigration and Nationality Act if they believe you broke the law and or might flee. Use caution when traveling. So many immigration attorneys are advising non-citizens to be careful when traveling and advising not to travel unless necessary. This is because the Customs and Border Patrol are enforcing rules that are a lot different and in a stricter manner than before. Again, broad authority by the president to do whatever they think is necessary to protect the country. Therefore, a non-citizen who is traveling to a country and coming back, it is very likely that you could be stopped, detained, and sent back. Before leaving the country, ask yourself, have I been outside of the US for more than 6 months? If you're a person who decides, okay, I'm going to travel, I'm going to go to Syria for 6 months. I'm going to go to Iran, I'm going to go to Lebanon for 6 months, 7 months, or whatever. Obviously, the country is going to question why you're going to, especially those countries where there's conflict, for that long of a time. What are you doing over there that you need to be there for 6 months? These decisions need to be evaluated before you're traveling. Am I from a country that's on a travel ban list? And that includes, am I traveling to a country? Could I handle being stuck abroad if sent back? If the answer to any of these questions is yes, then it's better to wait. Another hot topic nowadays is, can social media hurt your case? And what the government is looking for. So what is USCIS looking for? USCIS is collecting data to understand if there are discrepancies between your application and what you've been posting on social media for things like marital information, All right, an example of this. Somebody applies, actually this happened with somebody, a client I had. They applied for a green card, okay? And it was a marriage-based green card. So she was sponsoring a guy from Morocco. They said they're married, they're going through their application, but when it comes to our social media, on Instagram, and I checked myself, there was no wedding pictures. There was pictures of her out clubbing, different parties at other people's weddings, but not a single wedding picture or a picture of her husband. Those are things that are being looked at now. And the new updated applications that are going to be coming out are actually going to ask for your social media handle. So they're going to ask for your username for LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all of these, so that when they're doing a background check on you while your application is pending, they can verify, okay, this person says he's married to so-and-so. Is that the case on their social media as well? Or maybe they're picture with another wife or another woman or something. Is this immigration fraud? Are they using this person just to get a green card? Physical address. Do you really live where you said you do? Immigration applications ask in several different areas for your address history for the past 5 years. Again, if your Facebook says you live in Worcester, Massachusetts, and even let's just say you lived in Worcester, but now you moved to Springfield and you forgot to update your social media, that can be held against you too. Because what they're going to say is, okay, your current application says you live in Springfield. When we checked your Facebook, it says you live in Worcester. Where do you actually live? So it's very important that if you do use social media very seriously, and if you have all of your information there, the information on your social media matches what you're writing on your application. Again, relationship information, we talked about this. Employment and education. So again, LinkedIn, for example, if you're posting that you worked here for 5 years, because again, they're going to ask your employment history. So if you wrote on LinkedIn that I work at Microsoft, I've been there for 5 years, but your LinkedIn says Microsoft, I've been there for 1.5 years, there's a discrepancy, and they're going to send the application back to you. While USCIS is searching for discrepancies, they're also searching for whether or not you are a national security risk. Are you posting anti-Semitic content? Are you posting protests in favor of certain countries? Are you writing what could be deemed as a threat to the United States? And who are you connected with? Again, in light of everything that's happening in Palestine and other countries, most of our social media friends are attending protests. Some people are leaving comments and whether on their own social media or in some other page. These are all things that get looked at. So if your whole Instagram shows pictures at a Palestinian protest and statements against Israel or the US, they're going to deem you as a threat, right? And another issue is that, and this is a huge issue on Facebook, for example, for people who've been using it forever, sometimes we're connected with somebody who we don't talk to anymore, right? But we connected with them in 2005, we never took them off, and we haven't paid attention to what they've been posting. And now they're posting something that's extreme and violent. We're going to be associated with that person as well. So what I would recommend doing, and we can get to this in a second, I'll address right now, is doing an internet audit of yourself. Search your name on the internet, search your name on Google and see what pops up. You may have pictures that popped up on Google Images from your old Facebook page in 2005 that you don't want on the internet. You may have people that you're connected to on Facebook who you don't talk to and you shouldn't be connected to because of what they've been posting. Same thing for Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of these social media tools. So do a self-audit of your presence on the internet. And this applies for immigration, but it applies for your employment as well, or any other criminal matter. If you've had any unauthorized employment, so again, pictures of you working under the counter or comments that you wrote, I work for cash or somebody's paying me in cash. If you've made false statements to immigration and any group affiliation. So on Facebook, Instagram, you can, I don't think on Instagram, but on Facebook, you can join different groups, right? Somebody makes a group about a certain topic that may be deemed as anti-Semitic, and you join that group. Maybe you're not active, maybe you're not posting, but you're in that group. Those are things to watch out for as well. You don't know everyone who's in that group, and that can work against your case. How to protect yourself online. So this applies whether you're applying for immigration or are a non-citizen under this administration, do an online self-audit, search for yourself on Google, and see what pops up. Locate all your online accounts and do the following. Remove harmful posts or pictures that can be seen as anti-government or anti-American. Remove endorsements of violent activity or illegal activity. Remove anything that can be held against you. Remove any post bragging about anything illicit or illegal. Update visibility settings and set your profiles to private. Don't accept friends requests from anyone you don't know. This could be USCIS officers, and it's very well the case that they're making accounts or robot accounts under names that could be familiar with you, and they're sending friend requests. So if you have Instagram or Facebook or any of these, you can set your settings to private so that you're not searchable, or so that anybody who wants to follow you, you have to grant them permission. If you don't know who this person is, don't add them, because again, it could be any one of the agencies. And another topic I didn't write on this, which I should have, is the problem that we have as masjid organizations is that we are in 9,000 WhatsApp groups. We have so many WhatsApp groups that are community-based, that are not audited, or they're not being watched or monitored. And we don't know what people are sharing in these groups. Sometimes we don't pay attention, right? These groups have 500 people. You can't keep up with these messages every day. But then there's that one person who just keeps sending, some anti-government post or some extreme language. You didn't send that, you didn't endorse it, but you're part of the group. So again, if you're a green card holder and you're coming back to the US and your phone gets searched on the border, and the officer finds a group that you're in with a bunch of posts about anti-Semitism or anti-America, a huge reason that you can be in trouble. So if you're in these groups, maybe get out if you're not using it. If you're an admin, if some of our community members are the admins of these groups, pay attention to who's coming in and out. Make sure there's permission set so that you can evaluate who's going to come in. And some of our groups for the ICNE masjids, that's what we started doing, is our admins are paying attention to whoever comes in and out. The second something is posted that has nothing to do with our community or our community news, they get removed from the group. So those are some of the best practices. I hope this was helpful. My contact information is above. Inshallah, I'll be sharing the slideshow with the administration, and you guys can have a copy of it as well. So as the Imam said, you can go ahead if you want.
Can you make the screen bigger? Okay, so this is what we're going to do now. If anyone has a question, you can send it through this, but I'm going to ask everyone here. Okay, I'm going to ask everyone here, take your phone out and point it at the TV. Okay? So we're going to do that. Everyone is going to involve themselves in this. It's not just going to be the one or two people that want to ask a question, but everyone is going to put their phone up, okay? And we're going to wait until the questions come in. And in the meantime, while Brother Ali can look through the questions, we'll have Officer Casey give a quick address. So everyone go ahead, and if you have any questions, you can ask your questions directly to him. And then Brother Ali will go swift through the questions and then answer what he can.
And just one quick touch point on that. Please make sure your questions are relevant to today's presentation. The questions are not meant to be about your specific cases. So if you have any question that has to do with the presentation, you can go ahead, inshallah, and send those in.
Okay. Here you go. Good, you can stand up. You can sit down too.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah. So, I'm sorry, what's your name? It was just up there. I just want to ask Ali, general speaking. I love this presentation. I learned a lot, but I'm also curious to know, sir, generally speaking, because you mentioned that committing a crime could put you in jeopardy and being targeted by ICE. But if a person is a victim of a crime, so let's say they got robbed or maybe their car got stolen or domestic violence at home, would you recommend them still reporting that? And if they did, could that also end up place a target on their back?
So great question. Actually, there's a benefit to what he said too. So if you're undocumented and you are the victim of a crime, should you report it, and does that make you a target as well? Potentially, yes, it could make you a target, right? You're undocumented, somebody came to your convenience store, beat you up, and took your money. Should you report it, and can that put you at risk? Technically, it could put you at risk because, again, the police officer may ask questions that reveal your status. But if it's a local police officer or authority that is not working with the USCIS, you should be okay. However, there is a very special type of visa called a U visa. A U visa is something that not a lot of attorneys know about, but it's actually a path to citizenship if you are a victim of a crime and you helped in the investigation, right? I'm undocumented, I work at 7-Eleven, somebody comes in, beats me up, takes my register and leaves. I call the police, I work with the police officer throughout the whole case. Here's the surveillance footage, here's what I know so far, cooperating with them. If you have proof of all of this, you are eligible for a U visa. And this is a path to citizenship that not a lot of people know. So yes, there's a risk. If if you're undocumented and you have a local police department that is like, I'm gonna work with ICE and I'm gonna report anyone and everyone, potentially, yeah, you could get deported or get in trouble. But if you do report it, there's also a path to citizenship there.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I also want to put out there for the record that the Worcester Police Department, I'm not sure about other surrounding towns. I can't speak for towns like Auburn or Shrewsbury or Holden or any other agency like that, but as far as for Worcester PD, we do not work with the immigration and customs enforcement officers. Want me to wait for everything? Or?
No, they're sending the questions. You can go do your thing. I'm waiting for the questions
Oh,
to come in.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. This wasn't planned, can you tell? All right, so my name is Officer K.C. Onivo. Again, I work for the Worcester Police Department. I'm with my partner, Solomon Obang. He's a detective for the Worcester Police Department. You want to come on up, or are you shy? So I've been a police officer for about 13 years. I work as a recruiting officer, so if anyone here is interested in being a police officer, I'm your right-hand man. I can help you and assist you in the process to go about doing that. I'm also the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the department as well. In that role is completely different, but I just make sure everything goes accordingly in the police department, and if any officer feels that they're being scrutinized or not feeling welcome for anything that they identify in the department, I can step in and also make sure that nothing like harassments or anything like that are going on in the department as well. I thank Imam Vajid. I met him 2 weeks ago, and we had a great meeting. We talked a lot in the church clergy meeting, and he welcomed me here, and I'm glad to be here to answer any questions. But like Ali said, I guess today is kind of his hands are tied. He wants you guys to focus on anything with immigration, okay? But like I said a few minutes ago, the Worcester Police Department, we don't work with ICE. We don't send any information to ICE. I know there's been a few things been going on with the incident that happened last week, all right? But as police officers, we are preservers of peace. So when things happen and if another person, I guess the best way to put it is, let's say, I'm sure everybody here knows like DCF, Department of Children and Families, okay? I hope no one has ever been involved in that, but you guys understand that sometimes Department of Children and Families, sometimes they have to remove children from unsafe environments. And common practice is they'll call the police to assist as well, because they know that when they're trying to remove a child from a home, things can go south pretty quickly, okay? So in those circumstances, us as the police officers, we're not taking those children. We have nothing to do with anything with the investigation. All of that is handled by DCF and their state agency, and they have a list of protocols as to why they or why not they are not taking a child from a home, okay? So in that circumstance, if the parent gets violent with the workers of DC, that's when we end up stepping in just to make sure that no one does anything illegal, and if anything criminal does happen, we can quickly step in and they don't have to wait for a police officer, because obviously that's time, you know, being wasted to come down and pretty much just try to make sure that everybody is okay, everyone is safe, okay? So that's the best way I can try to explain the ways that the police department may end up getting involved. Like in his presentation, he said, if you try to run, if you try to fight or anything like that, for the most part, it just makes matters worse, okay? So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Okay.
So I don't know if it's working because I have 8 questions from before, but I'm refreshing it and I don't see any new ones.
This is a different link.
This is the only one that I have that they sent.
Do you want to start with any of as a?
Okay, so while the Sheikh is fixing a technical issue, I'll address some of the questions that were asked beforehand. A lot of these are very specific. Some of them aren't even immigration related, but I'll address the ones that are. Somebody asked, can you kindly address the situation regarding students on F1 status? So situation kind of changed a little bit.
23 questions.
Oh, wow, okay. Can I keep your phone?
Yeah, no.
Thanks. Again, I gave an example, or I gave 2 examples of students who had their visas revoked because of activities that they were involved in a couple years ago. When Trump came in, he said a couple things. Number one, he's going to make it very hard for H-1B programs, and he's going to make it hard for student visas. Student visas, I think at one point a month ago, 50,000 or something got revoked, but luckily a judge ruled against that. So a lot of them were reinstated, but again, if you are involved in a crime, that could be a legitimate reason to lose your student visa status. You won't lose your student visa status just for the sake of losing it. It's if you have some sort of crime of moral turpitude, theft, fraud, robbery, things of that sort. Do these rules about social media apply to citizens? Do we still have to remove pro-Palestinian content from private accounts? Okay, so regarding U.S. citizens, we are luckily, we are the most protected. And somebody in another presentation I had asked, as U.S. citizens, what can we do to help our brothers and sisters who are undocumented? We can post these things. It doesn't mean that we won't be monitored, right? Or if you're invoking violence, right? It's one thing to post Palestinian protest. It's another thing to use words of violence against the U.S. government or, you know, the actual government that owns us. We can still post it. We have more protections than non-citizens do. And then just a follow-up question based on the previous presentation, what can we do for our brothers and sisters who are not documented? We can advocate for them. We can help them in understanding the rights that they have. Maybe we should do the posting so that they don't have to do the posting. Maybe we raise the awareness so that they don't have to risk themselves raising the awareness. So again, as citizens, you have more protections than non-citizens. You can continue to post. Just be mindful of what you're posting and the words that you're using. Yeah, go ahead. Email? No. Nope. Sure. Can CBP officers ask to provide our social media and email passwords at the port of entry? All right, 2-pronged question. Number one, if you're a citizen. Number one, if you are not, okay? Another benefit of being a U.S. citizen is you don't have to conform to these searches. You don't have to hand over your device. You don't have to give them your passwords as a U.S. citizen. Can they make your situation at the border difficult? Can they detain you? Yeah, they can. At the end of the day, they have to let you go either way. If you are if you're undocumented, more than likely you should be handing these things over. because they have, again, broad authority. They can turn you away right at the border. A follow-up question that I'll tell you that people ask is, what can I do when I'm traveling, right? Hajj is coming up. Folks go for Umrah all the time. Summer vacation's coming up. What should you be doing if you have information or social media accounts that you worry about? Delete the account. Delete the account, remove it from your phone, download it later. Your information's still there. But that way you can turn your phone over, and guess what? There's no Instagram, there's no Facebook. You have nothing to look for. They're not going to sit there and say, okay, let me spend my time and go try to find this. If you do have these accounts on your phone and they see it, they will ask to search it, and they're allowed to. What happened to the ban list of countries? Does such a list exist? Yes, I don't understand the question, but there is a ban list. There's 43 countries on that list that Trump deems as dangerous. I don't necessarily understand what the person's asking for, but I would say if those countries are on your vacation list, maybe reconsider that. You mentioned international travel, but what about domestic? Domestic is fine. You're not being searched by Border Patrol because they're searching only people that are coming from outside of the United States. Having an Islamic presence on social media or in the community in general places you under the list of possible suspect or scanning. I don't know if this is a statement or a question, but I guess just being Muslim, we're all being monitored. What if you deactivate your Instagram and social media while traveling? They can't access it and reactivate or download apps, can they? Okay, so yeah, we just addressed that a second ago. Technically, they can. Right? If they really want to, they can do that. And yes, there are devices that you can plug in and you can download all the information and the history from a hard drive or whatever. I'm not an engineer, but I know it exists because I have friends that work in the FBI that do this as a job. So yes, your phone can be plugged into devices. They can download pictures, text messages, everything that you think you deleted. What protective steps students on F1 visa should take under current administration? Stick to your studies. Don't get involved in anything you shouldn't be involved in. Again, the easiest one that I always point out is when you're driving. It's a very easy way to get caught. You pass by a stop sign or a red light or you're speeding a little bit, you're under the radar. If you're a student that likes to party, maybe don't go to those parties. Oftentimes, if it gets loud, police end up there and there's a raid. How will immigration officers know if someone is working illegally? They're not going to know, right, because they're not psychic. They must have a tip, right? So if they know in Worcester there's 100 7-Elevens, there's a good chance that there's a lot of people working under the counter, and they're going to make the trip and they're going to come into the facility to find out if they're there illegally. Or they could get tipped off, right? Somebody could tell them that, hey, I know there's somebody who's working at this store, person doesn't have papers. That's how they find out as well. They could take it seriously. It's a way for them to get somebody, right? And that's the situation that happened at the restaurant I mentioned in Boston, right? They raided the kitchen. They didn't know that there was illegal people in there. They knocked on the door. The guy opened it. They went in a raid. More than likely, that was a tip-off. Right? Somebody told the restaurant or told on the restaurant that they have illegals working there. When I talked to the restaurant owner, he had 11 of them. 5 of them got arrested. As legal green card holders, should we hold off on international travel? And if so, for how long? So we addressed this during the presentation. For how long, I can't tell you. I don't know. The current administration has been changing things on the fly as they please. Again, if you really don't need to travel, especially if it's a country that's on the ban list, try not to travel. And go for vacation in somewhere in the US. Is an undocumented mother with 2 young kids under 12 safe from deportation? It's a very sad question. And the reality is that they're not safe. And if you see these videos online of ICE raids, actually there was a video yesterday where they left a 12-year-old, I think this is why the person asked the question. It was actually a 12-year-old that was left on the street by the ICE officer. So they arrested the parent, I think it was a mom or dad, and the kid was left on the street to figure it out on his own. So unfortunately, and ICE raids aside, let's just talk about just simple immigration applications. Sometimes we'll get clients that say, I have to get a green card. It's not safe for me overseas. If they're not applying for asylum, it's a different story, but I'll talk about a mental health client I had, a female. She was schizophrenic. She is schizophrenic. In Morocco, she would randomly walk out of the house at night. She ended up, in an alley with a group of men. Some things took place. She got hurt. Her brothers brought her to the US. We have medical records from a hospital in Vermont that she's schizophrenic, she's going through therapy. There is no sympathy. They didn't look at the application and say, oh, we feel bad, let's take care of her. It's, hey, you're not eligible for this green card. So there's no sympathy when it comes to these agencies. They don't care if you have young children, mental conditions, or things of that sort. There are avenues. Again, you can do asylum applications. You can do a U visa if you're a victim of a crime. You can do a VAWA application, which is Violence Against Women's Act, which applies to men as well. You don't have to be a woman. If you're a man and your wife abuses you, you could be eligible for VAWA. So there are certain situations and certain loopholes, but in general, do they care if you have kids? No, they don't, unfortunately. You can let me know whenever to stop.
We'll keep on going with the Q&A just to finish, but the food is ready downstairs. So if anyone wants to go down, feel free to go down, and we'll finish up here in a couple of minutes with the Q&A.
Is there more concern for an immigrant who became a citizen as a child, naturalized, versus a born citizen? Yeah, so naturalized citizens could still be at risk. We talked about the situation in El Salvador where naturalized citizens, again, it's because they had a criminal background here in the US that despite being citizens, they were getting deported. But in general, who is the most protected? US born citizens. Being a naturalized citizen, you are still protected. You should still aim to become a citizen if you're not. But again, based on your background, criminal history, those sorts of things could still put you at a risk. What are the rights as citizens when being questioned by immigration at the borders? For example, I have heard of cases where citizens are asked about the immigration of their parents or loved ones. As a citizen, how would you approach these questions without incriminating loved ones? So we addressed this in the beginning as well. Immigration questions at the border must be short and to the point about you, right? You're driving in from the Canadian border and they ask you, hey, what's your mom's status? Buddy, my mom's not traveling with me. I'm driving, you can ask me about my status and let me go through the border. They can't ask these questions about family or these broad range questions trying to incriminate you or your family members. What is the point of an ICE warrant other than just to act as an intimidation tactic to get people to give up their rights to privacy? That's the point. The point is to intimidate you, it's to bully you into getting access into your dwelling, right? So your house, place of business, your masjid. It's because they couldn't get a judge's warrant. So now they have this document that they created themselves, they signed it themselves as an ICE agent, and they're using it to basically take advantage from you. For citizens, can we continue to post about Gaza and advocate? Again, you're a citizen, you can advocate. Freedom of speech is there. Can it make things difficult for you? Are you still being surveyed and monitored by the government? Yeah. Should you post extreme language or anything that could be seen as a threat to the government? No. But basically posting, your advocacy for Gaza or pictures of a protest is, it should be fine. I've had social media for 2 decades and have posted on all different human rights violations. Being a citizen, should this be a concern? No, again, unless you're posting something that is a threat to the government. Is it hard to get an F1 visa under the Trump administration? No, it's not necessarily harder, but it's easier to get it revoked if you participate in things you shouldn't be. Huh? Yeah.
So my understanding is that previously, before, masjids were considered a place where ICE wouldn't normally go. Now, I've heard of something about it being revoked. If ICE were to come to the masjid, could we deem this entire property as a safe space where they're not allowed to enter? Or if they do enter, then how can we keep people safe?
That's a good question. I'm actually gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna end with that question because the rest of them are a little bit repetitive. So, as I mentioned before, I'm the president of ICNE, so Sharon and Quincy Masjid. And what we are doing there is we designated ICE response teams, okay? So what is an ICE response team? Make sure you're a citizen, don't designate somebody who's not. And the idea here is that you have, I'd say, a group of 5 or 6 people who are regular attendees that are always in the masjid. They're coming for the 5 prayers, Jummah, Halaqas, and everything. Those are your ICE response people that if ICE shows up at your door outside, or even if they try to come in, that is the team that's going to address them, right? So you see somebody walk in, you know, this brother over here in the corner is the ICE response team, he's gonna go and he's gonna talk to them. We talked about the warrant. That's the first thing that you're gonna ask. Do you have a judicial warrant? They show a judicial warrant, right? What does the judicial warrant have to have? I mentioned 3 important things, if anybody remembers. Right, the specific place, the name of the person they're looking for, and has to be signed by a judge, right? Your ICE response team here goes down, they look at the warrant, they verify, okay, they're looking for, you know, so-and-so. Worcester Islamic Center is mentioned as a place that is searchable. A judge signed it. It doesn't mean you have to say, okay, let's take a tour, come inside, I'm gonna show you the masjid and we're gonna get this guy. Okay, I'm gonna go and get him for you, unless that person's not there, right? They have a legitimate reason, they can come in, they can take that person. Unfortunately, it's say it again? That's exactly what we just mentioned, right? It allows them to, but in this case, we're talking about arresting people. This is an arrest warrant, right? So your ICE response team is responsible for that. They're gonna expect, if it's an ICE warrant, again, politely, you guys need to leave the premises. This is not a judicial warrant. Again, and I don't mean to be funny, I don't mean to be sarcastic. We're all, children of immigrants. Make sure your ICE response team are not people who have really thick accents. They could get in trouble themselves, especially if they're not citizens. Make sure they are citizens. It would be better if they are US-born citizens, not naturalized. So if you can delegate 5 or 6 individuals who are able to push back, right? Because the ICE agents will bully you. They will try to intimidate you. They'll say, hey, I'm gonna arrest you. You can, we'll take you to jail too. You need to stand firm and you're allowed to, right? So as a masjid, create this team and that team is responsible for answering to these warrants. Another way of protecting your masjid is, some masjids, unfortunately, the door is always unlocked, even overnight. People leave after Isha, doors unlocked until Fajr because people come for Qiyam. It's probably not a good practice. You don't know who's gonna come in. You don't know if somebody's gonna come in, as an agent and say, I'm gonna hang out until Fajr and grab whoever I want. So from a physical security standpoint, secure the premises. And then from a capacity building standpoint, you have a team of individuals that are responsible for this, inshallah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the reason that I mentioned before. The name is on the warrant. Imam Saab says, okay, I will go get them. You're not coming in. You're not going to the musalla and taking a look at whoever you want and grabbing who you want. Stay outside of the door. I will go grab the individual. I'm going to bring them to you. Once they're in, it's almost free ground.
Perfect. Alhamdulillah. We all thank you so much. We really appreciate all of the information that you taught us here today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep our community safe and all of the Muslims from these policies. We're going to head downstairs now for the dinner, and we'll try to make it as quick as possible before we pray Isha. Isha will be at 10 o'clock, inshallah. So, we made that announcement already at 10 o'clock.
Do you have a business card? So I ordered cards. I don't have them yet because I ran out.
Someone texted me this today.
So what I'll do?
I gave them your number, but I knew the right person. They said to me, do you know any organization that would help support Muslims with immigration detention while they were sent to 30,000? Yeah, Najma asked me. But you're the right person for it?
Yeah, we'll probably delay it.
And I'll share this presentation. Sir, you can take a picture, brother. If you have your phone, the information's right there. Oh, my contact if you want to take a picture.
Oh, and you have to eat too.
I'm hungry. I'm coming down.
How you doing? This is the president of our
Yeah,
masjid.
no. You don't have to say. I was going to ask. Come on. Everybody said he's the president of 2 other masjid. Can he be the third one? Can you take on the third one?
You want to be the president of our
Inshallah, I'll do whatever I can do. I'm always looking to collaborate with other masjids. So if you guys want to make a joint program,
Inshallah. You know, we haven't met, but I've sent so many people to you because I have your contact from a few years back. So anybody who needs the Muslim lawyer, send it to you. Recently was a brother who wants to do a law. I don't know if you do, but
I don't, but I can always find someone. Unfortunately, the tough part with wills is once you actually, there's not a single Muslim lawyer that can do that. It's a very niche line of business, and people just don't get it.
What do you think about this? We had these principles.
Yeah, these are, we call them red cards.
I was going to make that announcement, but I told them to run downstairs. So when they come up, I'll.
Yeah, this is really good because if people are scared to,
Yeah, we have them in four
sometimes the cop
languages.
comes to you and you stop talking. You pull it out of your wallet.
Pashto and Arabic. So we have them in four languages. You eat? Here, I can give you one for your language.
Assalamualaikum, Imam. I wanted to introduce myself. My name's Asim. Assalamualaikum, brother. I haven't met you since you started because I'm in the middle. I haven't met him. Can you believe that? No. Can you believe it? Because I have inherited a Kabir Imam here before you. So you were saved. Allah saved you. No, because I'm moving from Oldham to Happy. I'm still in the process of moving. I'm still coming back to live because this is my favorite one. Yeah, because I was like Imam Asif's student like 24/7. But I have a question. I have a local TV show in Worcester, and I talk about everything, which I talk about Palestine, everything. Would you be willing to come on my show and talk about like just Islam and Muslims in general, the current environment? Okay, and I tape, but Friday nights I tape at 6:30, 7:30. Center of
One day
Worcester.
that I'm not doing.
Is there like, can I get your information?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you my number, and then if you go to my office, all of my contact information is on there.
Yes, I've been trying to tell him that he should come to this much more. I think he would. Yes. Hi, can you put your name? Yes. So you probably know my uncle, Miraj's man.
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Oh, mashallah.
Yeah. So yes. question. It's just that's why brother Usman was like, you haven't met